thing about it, a king don't chase a peasant. King chase kings. I want Joshua.
Down to right forever winning. What up? Let's go, baby! Let's go!
Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news!
Well, given all the recent news that's been swirling around in regards to another weight class, this kind of flew below the radar for me, that the WBO has officially ordered a fight between up-and-comer Anthony Yarde and WBO champion, newly crowned WBO champion, three-time WBO champion, Sergey Kovalev. Let's talk about this for a second. You know, Anthony Yarde, you get a mixed bag whenever that name is brought up. Because on one end, there are people out there that feel that he shows a lot of promise, given that he doesn't come from an extensive amateur background like many of the champions in that weight class. He doesn't come from that kind of background, but he shows promise. And then there are other people on the other side of the spectrum who see the amount of world title opportunities that he's turned down already, and they're not impressed. That all they see in Anthony Yarde is a guy who's beating the kind of guys that he's supposed to be able to beat. And while, you know, that's the most you can ask him to do, it's nothing to write home about. Now, I'll tell you something. That even though the WBO has ordered this fight, officially ordered this fight, between Sergey Kovalev and Anthony Yarde, this really isn't the first time that Anthony Yarde has had this opportunity. Way back when, last year in June, he was offered this fight already, and he turned it down. He turned down that fight with Sergey, that offer to fight Sergey, and that was after he had already turned down an offer to fight Artur Beterbiev. So understand that these kinds of opportunities have been floating around for Anthony Yarde for some time. Now, one can deduce that the reason that these guys might have been turning down those kinds of opportunities in the past is because of what I just said. That Anthony Yarde don't come from the same kind of background as those guys. So they're using the bring along process to allow him to develop experience. Experience that he would have developed as an amateur if he actually had that kind of a background. But the fact that he doesn't, they're allowing him to learn on the job. Pick up the tricks of the trade on the go. Whether or not you want to be forgiving of that is up to you. That is a decision that is up to you, the listener, as to whether you think they're right for having done that or you think they are wrong for having done that. But at this point in the juncture, it's not merely an offer that's being made to Anthony Yarde. This is an order from the powers that be, from the WBO. They are ordering a fight between the two. Now, if you're Sergey, then you are forced to comply. As you are the WBO champion, you are subject to their mandates and their deadlines. That 30 days from March 13th, these guys have got to reach some kind of a deal. And if they don't, it'll go to a purse bid. But that for Sergey Kovalev, the reigning champion, he's got very little options. He has very little choices. That if you have any aspirations of holding on to that world title, then you must comply with this order. And your only saving grace is if Anthony Yarde don't want to fight. If he don't want to fight, then they can't hold you responsible for it, so you'll get to hang on to that belt in spite of the contest not happening. But if that's a fight that Anthony Yarde wants, then you are forced, you are obligated as a champion to give him his title shot. Now, in the case of Anthony Yarde, he's got a lot more flexibility in the situation. If he decides to forego this fight and ignore this order, there's nothing the WBO can do about it. There's nothing for you to strip him of. Oh, maybe he drops in your ranks, but that's inconsequential because there are 3 other sanctioning bodies out there. So he can just get himself ranked with one of them and move along as he pleases. That's if he so chooses to forego this fight. That he, unlike Sergey, has the option of walking away of his own volition with minimal consequences. Now, the reason I'm talking about the idea that maybe Anthony Yarde walks away from this fight, or that his team decide to walk away from this fight yet again. The reason I'm talking about this is because, you know, look, Anthony Yarde's been looking good fight by fight. He's been doing what he's supposed to do. He's developing in a way that you expect him to develop given the level of competition. But the fact of the matter is that Anthony Yarde hasn't been in there with an Isaac Chilemba. He hasn't been in there with a Joe Smith Jr. or a Jean Pascal or any of those kinds of guys. He really hasn't been in there with the kind of world-level journeyman that would prepare him for a world-level champion. So even though the WBO has ordered this fight, I'm I'm not completely convinced that it's going to come off. I'm not completely convinced that Anthony Yarde's team will allow him to go from fighting an unheralded opponent like Travis Reeves to fighting someone as formidable, as experienced, and as dangerous as Sergey Kovalev. Understand that as far as step-ups in competition go, that would be a pretty big jump. I mean, you haven't faced the likes of a Marcus Brown or an Eleider Alvarez yet. So they're going to fast-track you from Travis Reeves to Sergey Kovalev? You'll excuse me for saying that, I don't even know that Anthony Yarde is ready for a fight with Sergey Kovalev. And whether you want to be forgiving of that or not, it's besides the point.
It really is.
And whether or not you have a high opinion of Sergey Kovalev as a fighter and as a champion, that also is besides the point. Because what I'm addressing here is that the step up in competition between Travis Reeves and Sergey Kovalev is a broad enough leap that I'm not sure this fight goes through, even with the WBO's order. Because as it stands today, Anthony Yarde sports a professional record of 18-0 with 17 KOs. But in those 18 victories that he's piled up so far, there's not a single world-level opponent, seasoned veteran, or former champion among those names. You understand? You can't let the overachievers in the light heavyweight division fool you into thinking that that is the norm. When I say overachievers, I'm talking about guys like Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol, Alexander Vozdik, guys who really don't have that many fights, yet they took off running as soon as they turned pro. Their amateur backgrounds are what made that possible, you understand? The kinds of amateur backgrounds that Anthony Yarde don't have. So if you're seeing that Anthony Yarde right now is about 18-0, but hasn't really faced tough competition yet, I wouldn't myself hold that against him as much as some others, because, that's actually normal. Things start picking up once a guy starts approaching that 20-0 mark. That's when you start seeing those world-level contenders, opponents, and veterans, and former champions. That's right around the time that it starts to happen. Whereas, for some guys, it is a little different, but those guys don't speak for the vast majority of the weight class. So when I see this situation, and I see that Yarde is developing gradually, I don't hold it against him that he hasn't fought a real tough opponent yet. But I am mindful that because he hasn't really fought a tough opponent yet, I'm not convinced they're going to let him fight Sergey. You're going to go from Travis Reeves to Sergey Kovalev. That's quite a big jump, and based on how big that jump is, not convinced that we're going to see this fight next. I'm just not sold. I would be surprised if Anthony Yarde's handlers decided to go ahead and have this fight, because it seems likelier than not that this might be the second time they pass up on a Kovalev fight and the third time that they pass up a world title opportunity. Anthony Yarde has not fought the right kind of people yet to prepare him for a fight like that. And given how Sergey looked in his last fight, the guy looked like he was, in the Olympics or something. It was a great showing for Sergey Kovalev. He showed that in spite of some conditioning issues that he's exhibited in the past, he still has that amateur background, and he knows how to bring it out. He knows how to use it. The kind of thing that Anthony Yarde is wildly unprepared for. You've been fighting unheralded opponents so far, and while that might be normal, and while you might find some people that are forgiving of that, that still don't mean you're ready for a Kovalev fight. So I don't know, man. I don't know that we should expect to see this fight next. We'll see what they decide to do when they decide to do it. But for now, I'm not completely convinced that they're going to allow Anthony Yarde, at this point in the juncture, to fight with Sergey Kovalev. I'm not convinced. Now, I know that in my previous video, which I just uploaded earlier today, I spent quite a bit of time talking about Deontay Wilder and how the reports that are coming in now all seem to confirm that Deontay Wilder may choose to go in another direction, that he won't be accepting DAZN's offer, which pretty much comes up to about $100 million. If you think about it, you get $20 million for Brazil, plus $40 million apiece for 2 Anthony Joshua fights, which were included in the offer per the reports that are circulating. That, there were a lot of people that wanted to give the impression that perhaps the reason Wilder might have walked away from this offer is because it didn't include Anthony Joshua as part of the deal. Well, that's not the case.
Try again.
So Deontay Wilder's sycophant butt boys are going to try to have to find some other way to rationalize just why he's walking away from this deal. Now, based on these reports that are circulating, they are highlighting something that we talked about very much on this channel, that while Deontay Wilder, in his mind, as far as he knows, is a free agent that is free to roam to fight anyone, anywhere, at any given time, on any given platform, that while that might be his understanding of things, reality does not align with his perceptions. Because what may be stalling this fight, according to these reports from SB Nation, is the fact that Showtime and the PBC very much still want to get their piece of the pie. They want to get in on that deal. And as a result of that,
Wilder's passing.
they may be costing Wilder a life-altering payday, the likes of which he's never seen in 40 professional fights. Understand that the main guy that stands to benefit from this deal is the fighter, is Deontay Wilder. This deal benefits him greatly. But for those background guys that are going in his ear, telling him this and that, they're the ones who would end up getting the short end of the stick. The people at Showtime, the people at Fox, and the people over there at the PBC. The people I've been telling you may be operating with their own best interests in mind as opposed to that of their fighter. That given their professional relationships, their network relationships with networks like Fox, networks like Showtime, networks that Deontay Wilder don't even got a fucking contract with, that because of their relationships with them, they don't want to allow one of their fighters that makes up their content, them having content deals with networks, they don't want to allow one of their fighters to go to some other platform and make up the content for somebody else. And it's for that reason that they may be stifling this fight. Yet again, understand, ladies and gentlemen, I've been saying the same thing throughout, and the signs are there. The flags are there. The red flags. And at some point, Deontay Wilder's fans themselves are gonna have to ask themselves a question. Do they really want to see this fight? What do you want more? Do you want to see the fight? Or do you want to see Showtime, Fox, and the PBC get their piece of the pie? Are you willing to sacrifice seeing the fight so that those guys could get what they want when essentially the fight is entirely possible? If Deontay Wilder is really a free agent, as he said, then all he's got to do is goes over there, he has the fight, he gets paid. He gets the money that he's being offered. So it's not like he wouldn't benefit from it. But what do you guys want to see more? Do you want to see the fight, or are you
an idiot
that big of a shill for the PBC that you're actually willing to sacrifice seeing the fight just so that they can line their pockets with money that should be going to the fighters? There are guys out there that are so gone off the deep end, so determined to support whatever Deontay Wilder does, no matter how nonsensical it is. They're just so determined to do that they're not even thinking it through. If Wilder were to have taken this deal, that would have brought us closer to the fight, and the fight itself would have been part of your DAZN subscription, which is a mere $10 a month. You get one of the biggest fights in modern boxing for $10 a month. Where if Wilder does what he's likely being told to do by the people who keep going in his ear, if he goes the route that they want him to go, they're going to charge you idiots, the ones supporting him, they're going to charge you idiots $75 for a fight that you could have paid $10 for. And who does that benefit? It don't benefit you. They're just trying to get in your pocket. And it doesn't really benefit Wilder, because that means that instead of getting guaranteed money, Wilder's going to leave himself subject to the pay-per-view market yet again. The pay-per-view market that may or may not want to buy that fight and may choose to steal it instead, which will come at the cost of the fighters. How many people stole the Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder fight? That many more people would steal a Wilder versus Joshua fight if you try to put it on pay-per-view. But if Wilder were to go, if your concern is Wilder's pockets and making sure that he's compensated, because you care so I don't know what the fuck is with these guys. One minute they don't care about the money, but the next minute they're arguing in favor of Wilder's bank account. Whatever position you decide to take today, okay? If your concern is Wilder getting paid, guess what? The money from DAZN is guaranteed money. It's not subject to people buying a pay-per-view. People that likely don't want to pay $75 for a fight. It wouldn't be subject to that. His money would be guaranteed. And I reiterated, I've said in 2 videos already, if that money is green enough for Canelo, why wouldn't it be green enough for Wilder? Understand that if the PBC and the networks, whether it's Showtime or Fox, don't want Wilder to go this route, it's not to your benefit, it's not to my benefit, and it's not to Wilder's benefit. It is solely for their benefit, because they want your money and my money, and they want it, it'd likely be a $75 pay-per-view. They are halting the only progress this fight has made in all these weeks and months. They are halting that progress for their own personal gain. Not Wilder's, not yours, and not mine, and certainly not the sport of boxing, because it seems like they can live with Wilder not fighting this guy. They're okay with it, but boxing as a sport gets a huge black eye when a fight of this magnitude don't come off. The fight's only getting bigger, ladies and gentlemen. It's only garnering that much more attention. But you tell me, based on these recent events, based on this recent news, do you feel closer to the fight or further away from it? Just what exactly is Deontay Wilder gonna be announcing on Tuesday? It's likely not gonna be that he's going to DAZN for the fight. That seems to be the running theme. That seems to be the rumor. So whatever announcement it is, it's probably particular to the Dominic Wade fight, which network is going to stage it, what platform you can see it on, and where it's going to take place. That's probably the extent of the announcement that he intends to make very soon. But you tell me, are we closer to a Joshua fight now, or are we further away from it? And if we're further away from it, if that's how you feel,
Is that a good thing?
why on earth would that be a good thing? Who benefits from that? Me? You? Wilder and his legacy? Or Wilder and his bank account? Who benefits from the current state of negotiations that seem to be fizzling out yet again? I told you guys, it's possible that they will try to hold things up yet again, that they may continue to stall for more money. Even after the Fury rematch has fizzled out, they still might persist with this pattern of behavior. And it appears that I might be right yet again, even though I didn't want to be. Now, there is some speculation that perhaps PBC's partner networks, Fox, Showtime, they may decide to make Wilder a multi-fight deal, to lock him in. But all that really does is assure that he's no longer a free agent and that they're going to keep him on their side of the street. And the timing of the move, if that's what happens, if that's what gets announced on Tuesday, the timing of a move like that,
Especially now,
indicates that they are working to impede negotiations with Anthony Joshua and DAZN. Not to move them further along, they're just looking to limit Wilder's movements, because very recently they saw that he would be willing to cross the street, and they've got to stop him from doing that. So their way of stopping him is by giving him the network deal that he should have got a long fucking time ago. All I can say is it doesn't look good. That's all I can say. And that in spite of all the recent talks regarding this fight, it still hasn't gotten anywhere.